Hi, I'm Moji Alawodeyal from the Feminist Buzzkills Live Pod, the only podcast that helps you navigate the news in this post-pro anti-abortion hellscape. Each week, with co-host Liz Winstead, we dissect all the news from that sketchy intersection of abortion and misogyny with providers and activists working on the ground. The cherry on top is we have amazing comedy guests who help us laugh through the rage. Feminist Buzzkills Live drops Fridays wherever you pod. Listen and subscribe, because when BS is popping, we pop off.
I'm Brian Karam, and I've spent decades covering politics. Now I'm taking you behind the scenes, one interview at a time.
Join us as each week Brian confronts the issues that matter, posing the questions you wish you could ask. No filter, no agenda, just the truth.
We're not here for sound bites. We're here for substance. Join me, Brian Karam, every week as we cut through the noise and get straight to it. This is Just Ask the Question, where curiosity will lead us to the facts.
Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform, and remember, when you want answers, all you have to do is just ask the question.
Women are so resourceful. We are so solution-oriented. We are so good at figuring things out.
I'm already seeing the connection between this and political organizing.
We came to make a change.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to How to Not Lose Your Shit. I'm Katie Paris, the founder of Red Wine and Blue.
And I'm Ivana Hall, the head of States program here at Red Wine and Blue.
Thank you for joining me, Ivana. I love how we've been getting to share the talents of so many amazing women who work at Red Wine and Blue this summer, and I'm really grateful that you joined me for this conversation.
This was so exciting. What a treat. When I heard Sara Wiles was going to be joining us, she is a phenomenal influencer, but it was also great getting to hear just her experience as a businesswoman as well and how she's merged the two.
Oh yeah, how it all connects. That was so cool. So everybody, this week we are joined by the Sara Wiles. She is a mom and a content creator extraordinaire who has a huge following because she talks about politics in such a relatable way. I personally love her content and know so many other women who do, including you, Ivana. So what stood out to you? Were there any surprises from our conversation with Sara?
Oh man, I really loved just like her story about, her growing up in the South and getting to experience just a new culture going up to New York. That's actually really relatable to me and how I grew up visiting my grandparents in New York and how that kind of tied and helped her explore politics a little bit further. That was lovely to hear, but also just how she works to build connection. I think she had some really great nuggets that I can take and apply, and everyone can take and apply while having those conversations with loved ones or friends moving forward.
I love that you guys have that tie. I too grew up visiting grandparents and getting to explore New York City as a girl raised in the South. Like, we should have a club. There's something happening here among all of us having a background and turning out the way we do. I loved what she said from the very beginning about how she's had all these pivots in her career from, working in the corporate world and event planning and then creating her own business. And then now this whole entree into politics. And to me, the through line for all of it is that she's just good at figuring things out. I often think that we think of these content creators or influencers or whatever, we're going to call people online who have, these hundreds of thousands or millions of people in their followings, is that I think sometimes they can be dismissed. And sometimes this is well earned as sort of shallow, right? Like, it's very surface level, not a lot of depth there. They're not really actually doing anything, that they're just putting a camera in front of their face. That is not the case with Sara Wiles. This woman is an organizer at heart. She's so good at tapping into what her audience can hear, when they can hear it, in a way they can hear it, and then finding the way to invite them to engage more deeply. This is not surface level stuff. And I just love how Sara is bringing new women, I would say every single day, into the political process by talking about it in a way that is relatable and clear, like so clear about what to do next, because that's the thing, right? So often it's just like, oh, I'm overwhelmed. What do I do? And she creates that path. Let's bring on Sara Wiles.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
So I've seen you describe your job as creating content about, quote, politics, feminism, and the exhausting Olympic sport of keeping hope in America. But for years, you've actually, I'm not sure everyone knows this about you, but you've actually run a virtual assistant company.
Mm-hmm.
I got to learn more about this pivot. Like, how did you pivot from that to politics?
Yeah.
And what does one have to do with the other? Because I think there's a connection, but I got to hear it from you.
There's a great connection there. And actually, this would be my third career pivot now, even though I'm still in two.
We love a pivot.
My background is in corporate events. I was a corporate event planner for 8 years, and I did everything from, 5,000 person trade shows in Las Vegas to 20 person small VIP trips to, Maui and the Big Island. And that was a really fun job until I had a baby. And I did not have paid maternity leave. And I also worked for a company that did not understand at all how much my life needed to change now that I had a tiny infant at home. And so I could no longer travel for 10 days at a time to all of these places because I had a tiny baby. And we were not in a financial position to be able to become a one-income household. I needed to be able to work, but I also needed to be able to do work that was more flexible for me. And I had a friend who heard about virtual assistants and just knew, hey, I'm a resourceful person. I am so used to being on site in corporate events and, pulling things out of my butt to make them happen because our VIPs decided that they want front row tickets to Celine Dion tonight, to a sold out show. I mean, that was my life for years. She was like, you're just good at figuring things out. I feel like you could do this. And so I did. 2 weeks into starting, I quit my corporate job and I was able to replace my 9-to-5 salary. And then I started out as a virtual assistant, and very quickly, so many women that I knew in my personal life, from college, from high school, from mom groups that I was in, they started seeing what I was doing because I was posting about it online, saying, okay, but can you teach me too? Can you train me too? And so eventually we turned into a training company, and we've been doing that ever since, training other women on the business side of things. Because my deepest belief, as we all know, women are so resourceful. We are so solution oriented. We are so good at figuring things out.
I'm already seeing the connection between this and political organizing. Because I don't know, Ivana, don't you feel like that could just basically be the job description, like for anyone on or like on your organizing teams, like good at figuring things out?
Yep.
So you build, it seems like a quite successful, and this is a company that you still have, right? Of the training virtual assistants.
Yep.
But then you were like, I think I'm going to do something else, and it's going to have to do with politics. Let's go. So how did that seed get planted?
Yeah. So I've always been politically minded. My origin story that I like to tell is, my grandma was a New York City public school teacher for 40 years, and she was a union leader. And then she worked for the teachers union in retirement, helping other teachers with their pensions. And so I grew up with my grandparents in the summers in the city, listening to NPR and watching PBS and exploring the city and getting access to other cultures and more diversity than I saw in South Florida in my very, white community in Boca Raton, Florida. And it's just how I grew up. I grew up caring and being involved and just knowing what was going on around me. So it's kind of always who I've been. But then my first foray into doing anything political was when my husband was in law school. I met another woman there who was in law school. We became friends. And she always volunteered with her parents growing up. So we volunteered on Obama's re-election campaign together, door knocking. And then ever since, I've just done that. I worked and volunteered with Moms Demand Action, and I volunteered with a million different campaigns. So I'm usually the one door knocking and, calling people on the phone, begging them to vote. And then after the second Trump administration, after his second win, I just felt like it wasn't enough. And I had a much smaller platform than I have now, but I had enough to feel like I could make a difference. So I said, I'm just going to start saying what's in here, what's in my brain online, and the conversations that I'm having with my friends, and we'll see what happens. And here we are about a year and a half later.
Were you worried running a virtual assistant company? Like, what is this going to do to my business? Because I imagine you're training a lot of women to assist people who, you don't know what their politics are necessarily. So how did you navigate that?
It's been pretty clear. If you want to do any sort of research into me and what our company is and what we stand for, you can kind of pick it up pretty quickly. But I always kept my political posts in my Instagram stories and not on my feed because my feed was for business. And so I felt like people knew. I was nervous, but I think I always have this way of knowing what's right. And so doing what's right for me always outweighs whatever negative could come from it. And I just kind of forget about the negativity and run at things. But I know that that's just like a personality thing of mine, because I know not everybody feels that way.
Okay, but what was the impact on your business?
None.
Okay, so it turns out.
Well, that's a little bit of a lie. It was none in the beginning. After this last election, the women on my team also politically aligned, very much. And they shared their own personal feelings and opinions after I think many of us did on the, night of the election and the day after. And we did have a little bit of fallout. I think we had like 5 people want to cancel because of that. But to me, that felt like that's okay. And my team member was like, oh my God, I just lost us all this money. And I was like, no, you didn't. I don't care. That's okay. If they no longer feel comfortable in our space because we believe in equality and kindness and human decency, like that's okay. I'm all right with not making that money. We'll go find it somewhere else.
Yeah. And I bet you did.
Yeah.
Sometimes like kindness and equality and all those things, they're pretty attractive qualities at the end of the day, and I bet people found you as a result of that too. Can I ask you too, though, it sounds like you helped yourself and also a lot of other women who were seeking financial freedom, seeking flexibility in their lives so that they could be both, fulfilled professionally as well as in their personal family lives. What connection do you make between like female entrepreneurship and women's political empowerment?
I mean, if you run a business as a woman, we only have the ability to do that because a bunch of women a lot of years ago stood up and said, hey, not cool, men. We would like to have the right to vote. We would like to have our own bank accounts. We want to own property. We want to be able to run a business, right? Like, we are only you, and not everybody here is only able to do this work because women in the past went, no, we're going to resist and stand up and ask and demand for better. And so it kind of feels like we're just doing the same thing over and over and over again and just trying to claw our way upwards towards more equality.
I think that's really beautiful.
I see the parallels as well with what we do here at Red, White, and Blue, Katie, and Sara, the work that you do with also like trying to find like that balance. A lot of people think you can't do this work and it always has to be heavy workload and you're scaling quickly and it's all this burnout and you can't do this in a real meaningful way. And so I would love to hear more about how you strike that balance between your business and then being this political influencer and doing all the work that you do, and how you still have, find time for Sara.
Well, if you know anything about me online, I am brutally honest, if nothing else, and I don't like to BS people. It's really hard right now, but you also have me the day before our Florida primary election, so it's like the hardest and busiest that it's ever going to be. I'm very lucky that when I stepped into this, more visible political work, my business and my team were very seasoned at that point. So I have an incredible team of all women that support me and an incredible COO. Without her, operationally, I could do absolutely none of this. So I have a ton of support to be able to do this. And we've just figured that out. And I, again, also feel so grateful and lucky that the team of women that I work with, I had to go to them and say, so I know this is our livelihood and how we make money. And also, I'm going to go do a lot of other stuff for free because I think it's actually best for all of us. And it just feels like the right thing to do. And every single one of them has just been so supportive and said, like, you go do that. We're going to hold down the fort over here.
And how about that Olympic sport of staying hopeful part, Sara? How's that going in the midst of all of it?
Today is a bit of a hard day, again, because we're one day before a primary. But I mean, for the most part, I have this beautiful privilege of seeing not just what people say online in the comment section, but I see the DMs that I get from people. And so often those are the things. I have this very interesting vantage point into what's happening because of that. And because people like to reveal themselves to me quite often because they feel some sort of connection. And so it's the people in the DMs, it's the people that you meet knocking doors. Those are the things that help me realize, number one, this is not a lost cause. In Florida especially, there are so many more good folks out there that care. And so every time I am feeling low or having a bad day, it will be something like this incredible community center in Lake Worth, Florida right now, who's been taking care of children whose parents have been, deported. And just our online community helped raise $60,000 for a family so these kids could keep the roof over their head and food on their table, right? And I can't do that without social media, and I can't do that without the folks that are with me on social media. So People care. It's just we got to get it to them and make it really easy for them to take action.
Both politics and social media can constantly be changing. I think we know like it's so hard to keep up. How do you decide what to focus on and what might resonate with people, but also like how to beat the algorithm as well? Like how do we do that?
I know. How do we keep seeing you in our feeds? Oh, you're breaking through all the time.
Yay. That's great news. Thank you. Couple of things. Number one, I think this is where being a seasoned marketer is really helpful for me because I've been in online marketing since 2017. I have been through the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, and I'm very aware that marketing has a cycle. And so, when something stops working, it's not always because everybody hates you and they don't want to read your content anymore. It's probably like, oh, something has changed in the audience, in the algorithm, in just the way that we're consuming content. And so it's time to kind of figure out what's a new and better way to connect with people. So I think for me, that's kind of a really helpful thing. There might be things that I find really interesting, but when I put those stories out to my audience, they actually don't find them interesting at all. And so then I take a little mental note. We worked with a sexual health company and I've done like 2 or 3 posts now on women's sexual health. My audience does not want to talk about that at all. And so I did it 3 times and I was like, okay, noted. Like this is not something that I'm going to keep bringing forward to them because they're not that interested in it right now. So a lot of it is trial and error. But at the end of the day, I never want to talk about something that doesn't matter personally to me in some sort of way or that I know will connect to my audience.
You're always making sure that Sara and your authenticity is always linked to everything that you're putting out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it works, right? Like a story is just a story without something behind it, right? And so we see a headline on, whatever news that you're looking at, whatever mainstream media you're looking at. And then it's up to folks like me to make meaning into that and to try to help describe what it is and why it is. And so I think people follow me because they appreciate the way that I share things and the lens that I see the world through. And they want help understanding what's happening, through the lens of someone they share values with.
How do you know that something is definitely going to break through with your audience? When you see it, I mean, when you see it, you know it, right? Like, how do you know?
Okay. So we're data nerds.
Bring it on. So are Ivana and I.
Like we all are.
So what we have figured out that does gangbusters for us, but it is the hardest and longest thing for us to create. Our audience loves when we break down topics and deliver something to them where they go, wow, I never thought about it that way, or I never considered it that way. Or what we'll hear a lot, like when we know we hit it, it's when we get comments that say, I've always felt this, but I've never been able to put the words to it. That's when we know it's going to hit. So if we can, explain a topic, one of the very first hits that we had very early on was explaining why some men say that they don't like women who promote feminism. They don't like feminism. And so we broke that down. Like, what does that actually mean? So if a man is telling you that he doesn't like feminism or a feminist, what he's actually saying is he doesn't like that you have access to things that he has access to. What he's actually saying is he prefers to have power over you, right, than to have power beside you. And if that is how he feels, okay, great. But as a woman, you should probably know what that actually means at the end of the day. And people were like, that's mind blowing. I didn't connect those dots there. And, then you hear it and it feels so simple. Like, yeah, of course, that's what it means.
Such a great example.
But if we can do that, and connect those dots for people, that's where we hit. But then sometimes we don't know. Like we had a post go mega viral about the U.S. men's hockey team. And
I remember.
We had no idea. I was just like, well, I am so interested in this because it's my life. I'm married to a man who still plays adult men's hockey at 42, 43. And I have a child that plays hockey. So it felt really important to me. I did not expect that one to hit like it did.
That was such a great example about feminism. I can see so many women feeling like, oh, like when this happens, it's so frustrating, but like I can't put my finger on saying exactly why. And you did that for them. Okay. So that is a unique talent you have. I also think that you are so good at tapping into your own vulnerability. You're willing to go there, right? Whether it's like about a perimenopausal chin hair or like whatever. I think other women sometimes, whether it's sort of discomfort with the overshare, which I actually think connects a lot of times. Like that is how we create connection among one another in our friendship, not just online, but in our friendships, right? What you described, I think, is a real skill in terms of helping women sort of tap into that. I've never quite knew how to put it that way. What advice do you have for women who want to be able to connect with the people in their lives about the things that they care about related to politics, these other issues that you're talking about online, who may not have, like Sara, let's face it, like Sara Wiles level, like charisma and willingness to share. Like, give us some guidance.
I think if you're talking about in our personal lives, for me, what I always remember is when I first got diagnosed with postpartum depression, I felt so alone in that. I felt like that was such a shameful thing, and that I could only tell like the closest of close friends. And even then, it was like my friend who was a therapist, because she was the one that was like, girl, we got to get you into therapy. This is not okay, right? And it felt so shameful. And I remember feeling like, I don't want another woman who's going through this, another mother who's going through this, to feel like she has nowhere to turn because of this shame, right? And what we know about shame through, research is essentially the more that we talk about something, the less power that it has over us. And so I just started experimenting with little things, right? Like I would be at the playground with my son and another mother would say like, oh, what did you do today? And I would say, oh, I went to therapy. And I would just like test the waters and be like, I'm just curious. And remember, this was like 10 years ago. So things have changed a little bit in the last 10 years, right? But just see like how did they react to that? And I would just pay attention. And that was kind of like my first little dip into the vulnerability, pond outside of people who I know. And then I think I just kind of kept going from there. And I would get feedback from people that would say like, wow, I now feel comfortable telling you I'm going to therapy, or maybe even what I talked about in therapy because you were brave enough to go first and open yourself up first. So that's me. But I also know that not everybody is like a high disclosure type of person. I just am naturally that person. And so I think like finding little ways within your comfort zone to just see how you can start to connect deeper with people, because we don't make deep connections on surface level conversations, right? Like we have to get to the depth to be able to build relationship. And you can do that in a way that doesn't make you feel like you're completely exposing yourself. If that is something that's really new for you or scary for you, you can go slow.
We went to a huddle in Ohio with some of our leaders a few weeks ago. And one woman talked about how she talked to a couple of her girlfriends. She had 5 of them that she went to brunch with. And her starter was, do you all feel safe right now? And just like open-ended. And like, that's how she was able to gauge where they all were. 4 of them, she instantly knew like how they were feeling politically about at this moment. So now she's going to keep talking with them. But I loved that one too. Of like, do you just feel safe right now? Just, and however that comes through.
I love that too, because for me, I'm thinking of, some of my family members who we don't align politically at all, but they might still answer that question in a way that would give me an in to start having a conversation too, right? Like, oh no, I'm really concerned that there's so much government surveillance happening now and there's flock cameras everywhere. Like, yeah, me too. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? Right? Like, that's an interesting in that you can take. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Sara, you spend a lot of time online, though, consuming a lot of politics. And a lot of women don't want to do that or don't have the time necessarily to do that, given everything every woman is balancing in their lives. And so sometimes we feel like, I don't know enough. I can't have those conversations. You've done your homework. I haven't. So I'm going to sit tight. What do you say to those women?
I think something for me is knowing my values so deeply, and my values inform my politics, right? So like, I don't necessarily need to know my policy opinion on every issue because I'm not a policy wonk. I am not a political science major. Like, I am learning these things on the fly with everybody else. I also grew up in America and also went to public school here. We do not have a culture of civic engagement or even like civic education in this country either, at least not where I grew up. And so often when I'm posting something, I'm learning it in real time too. And so number one, I think that that's really helpful for folks to know, like somebody who does this work does not know everything. No one knows everything. But really rooting back to your values, I think, is helpful, because if somebody is trying to do a gotcha, which I think is what people are so nervous of, right? Like, okay, if I'm going to get into this political conversation, someone's going to come at me and be like, well, what do you think about blah, 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 blah? And they're going to be like, I don't know. I don't know all the details, right? It's really easy to say, I'm not totally sure. I'm not super educated on that, but I'd love to go get educated and get back to you on that. Like, that is a perfectly valid thing to say. And then you can let your values guide the way there. It's very clear what my values are, right? But my values inform my politics. And so I vote with my values and I look at issues with my values as well. And I think that kind of helps.
Yeah, I agree. Something else that I think helps is that sometimes when I see a woman who's like getting newly curious or interested in an issue, there can be a feeling of like, oh, well, I can never catch up. There must be so many other people who are already so far ahead of me on this and know so much more. Guess what? Maybe not. And I would add to that, probably not. From your unique perspective, from your life experience, from wherever you're from, wherever you sit, from whatever your community is.
Yeah.
I think so much we opt out. We just like by default sometimes and thinking like somebody else is already all over this. They already know the things. But the times where I have seen women sort of realize, hey, wait a minute. Actually, somebody else isn't doing this, isn't looking into this.
Nope.
And that's what I see people like really get their wings and fly. They start local groups. They start, organizing around a local issue, getting people to come up to city council meetings. And all of a sudden they're leading the way. And if they had decided to just, hear that voice in their head saying, oh no, you don't know enough, you're not enough, then none of that change would have ever happened. I see that again and again and again. It's like my favorite thing to cheer on, when I see women sort of realizing like, it's like how you see women decide to run for office. They go to a school board meeting. They're like, wait a minute, this is who's in charge.
This is them. Okay, I can do this. Yeah,
exactly.
I think that, and like to kind of piggyback off or pull at that thread a little bit more, something that I try to tell people all the time is, they see the work that I do. They see the work that you guys do. And they look at us and think that's the only way to do it, is to be the voice online, to start the organization, to do this work, right? And so the thing that I try to say is, do you know what else is really helpful for organizations and campaigns and groups? Knowing how to use an Excel spreadsheet is really helpful. Like, do you know how much data is sitting in there, or a Google spreadsheet, whatever you want, right? Like, if you know how to work in a spreadsheet, and I'm not talking at an advanced level, like if you can just dedicate some time to help in a spreadsheet, you can do a lot of good work. If you can cook food for some organizers, if you can watch their kids, if you can drive someone to the polls, you can do great work. And so I think sometimes we lose that part of it because we are the people delivering the message and we are the message deliverers. So they think that's the only role. But it's 100%. Like, we are like a teeny tiny little piece of the pie.
Sarah, you mentioned before that you have family members who don't necessarily share your values.
Yep.
You live in Florida. And so we know that there's a lot to navigate, and it's not exactly a homogenous environment when it comes to your views on things down there. How do you make decisions about where to protect your peace and where to wade into the conversation?
Yeah. So first, I would love to say, as a Floridian who is born, raised, and now raising a child here, I've lived in the state for all of my 40 years minus 8, and all of them have been in the South, so somewhat similar experiences. Florida is so much more politically diverse than I think the state gets credit for. We are a very gerrymandered state.
Yep, fair.
So we look a whole lot more red than we actually are, and that was very intentional. As somebody who also loves to be a bit of a fly on the wall in some Facebook groups that you might not normally think that you would find me in, I see some very interesting things happening here that I'm very excited to see how they play out. But also, to be very honest, I am pretty tight with my circle here locally. It's not that I won't talk to other people who have differing opinions and views. I absolutely will. But if my child is going to be along for that, or my kid's going over to someone's house, like, I got to know where you stand on a couple of things. I got to know if you have firearms in your home. I have to know, if you've got your medications locked up. There are things that you need to know. And so I do tend to keep it a little bit tighter because of that. And I also don't engage with people in bad faith, right? Like, that's a complete waste of my time. If you want to have a respectful conversation, I'm your girl. I will sit with you and talk to you about this until the cows come home. But if you just want to yell in my face or argue with me, that's not worth my time. I have so many other things that I could be doing that could actually make an impact that aren't this.
I think that's such a simple, good piece of advice or a guideline for us. Like, good faith, bad faith. You know it when you encounter it, right? I mean, if someone is just trying to light you up, be dismissive of you, talk down, like, no, why not protect your peace in those moments? Like, not worth your mental energy or emotional energy. But there are, I think, a lot of people who do. That's a brave thing to do. If somebody who comes from a different background and asks a good faith question, like, to me, that's opening a window.
Yeah. I think what helps there too, and I'm getting ready to do a series on this, which I'm like so excited about, but I'm not going to reveal the family member, but I have a very close family member who I've been working on for 10 years, who's been a Republican their entire life. And the first 9 years of living through Trump, I just yelled. I was so mad and so angry and so hurt. And I felt like this person who is so close to me, who I know is a good person, I know is a kind person, is letting this happen and being okay with it and voting for it 3 times. Like, oh my God. And so for the first 9 years, I yelled. In this last year, I stopped yelling and I started listening. And so when this person would come to me and they would spout off some fact that they probably heard on a specific news station that most of us knew, I would say, let's talk about that. Where did you get that information? How do you know that it's factual? Okay, cool, let's look it up. And I would try to be near my computer and I would look it up and I would go, cool, let's actually figure out what's going on here. And I would try to educate this person. Now, it's taken a year and a lot of time. I don't think that we will ever get this person on our side, and that's okay. But this person is now NPA, no party affiliation, because they now don't want to be associated with that party. So what I have just learned myself, that anger and that rage is valid, and yelling is not going to change hearts and minds on either side. And the second I got calm, I was able to make inroads. And I think that's really important to know.
Wow. That was a big lift. Congratulations on your part for all of the patience. Like, wow, you're one patient mama. I have experienced some evolution in very close family members as well. And it has not even been so much the research heavy lift that you have described, but more they very much know where I come from. They very much know my values. And they see how I know I've had an influence on them because they'll tell me, but it's not because of anything I said about an issue. It's because of knowing my values, how they saw me operate as a mom, as a professional, as an employer, when I was younger, as a student. And it made them think, oh, well, if she can sort of I agree with those values, so maybe it should make me more open to theirs. So, but it never is. It never is the argument. It's never going to happen because the argument happens through relationship. And you were only able to have the conversations you did because of the relationship that was already in place.
Yeah. Sara, I'm a Southern girl too. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. I consider myself like a political refugee. I've lived in Richmond, Virginia for 7 years now. But I'm the same way of growing up in a heavy red state. And it's really hard when I go back home. I was just home in June visiting family about a week and a half, and it just feels different. And I'm one of those people. For the longest time, I would try to get my parents like, just move over here to this side of the country. And they are like 2 toes in. We're not leaving. Like, this is home. We're not leaving. And so I finally have accepted that. But with you still being in Florida too and trying to continue to make that change, there are so many more people who vote blue in the South than there are in these other blue states that people forget. Can you talk to me just about like the lack of investment and the lack of really giving people a shot in our southern states that we live in, and having to do the work from the ground up to prove that the change is here and it's going to come, but we need their investment now, and we need them to believe that we can do this now.
Yeah. I get it. It's so hard. And I'm so happy to see the investment happening in Texas now. And I hope that we can pull some of that over to Florida.
Yeah.
Because we're not seeing it here yet. I think there's kind of 2 options, right? And every time somebody talks about, we need to be organizing better in the South, we need to be organizing better in the South, they will tick off a list of states in the South. They don't say Florida. Florida is never included in that conversation in the South. And I'll be the one that's like, Florida, like, we're here. We're a whole big state here. I think there's 2 options for someone like me. I can be mad and, bitch and moan and yell and point the fingers. Or for me, I'm like, no, I'm just going to make you pay attention to Florida. I'm going to be so loud and so effective at the work that I do that I'm going to make other people around the country go, hold on. Not only is she in Florida, but there's this whole other group of people that are in Florida too. We know how to fight hard down here because we have to fight hard down here. Like, the other thing that I've started saying too, I'm Jewish, and I don't mind sprinkling on a little bit of Jewish guilt where I need to. Something that I say all the time now is like, hey, if you live in a safe blue district or a safe blue state, I love that for you. Can you phone bank for us? Can you donate to us? can you share our candidates' information, right? Like, I love that you have that, and that's amazing, but we need help too. And also, if you can help us, we will help everyone together. So, we're just trying.
All right, Sara, last question. You have done phenomenal work on your platforms, giving women things to do. You point them to specific candidates, to specific organizations, including Red, Wine, and Blue, to actually take action. But this is one of the key challenges, right? When we are talking to the people in our lives about our values, sometimes it can feel hard to get people to actually move to that point of action. And I think that's certainly true online. A lot of people say, oh, it's so hard online. People just want to scroll, maybe throw you a like, maybe throw you a comment or a share. But to get them to actually go from that online engagement to real world engagement, what are you finding that is working? And what advice do you have for all of us out there who are looking for ways to get people to engage in real life?
So you have to tell them what's in it for them, right? The three of us on this podcast, we are the outlier. We are the nerds. We eat, breathe, and sleep the I don't know why. This is just how we were born. We're obsessed with it. It's our hyper-focus, whatever.
Exactly.
Other people care. They're just not as interested in it as we are, right? And again, we've got two choices. We can either be like, you should be better informed and do more, or we can be better marketers. And again, for me, this is where my marketing background comes in. I'm always thinking about things in terms of conversion. Even though I'm not personally selling anything, I am trying to influence people to care more and take more action. So these are the two things that I have seen work, and I'll give you two specific examples. Or the one thing that's worked, and I'll give you two specific examples. You have to tell it what's in it for them, besides doing a good thing and feeling good about yourself and helping a great candidate and saving our democracy and fighting fascism, right? Like, that's all the stuff that the three of us care about that everybody else cares about, not as much. They do, but not as much to take action. We got to find something to pull on them, right? So right now, we're doing an awesome creator conference down here in Florida with the Florida Immigrant Coalition. So excited about it. As we were promoting the conference, what we focused on is helping other people who do this work find community. That's something that's in it for them. And that's the feedback that we've received over and over is like, this work is so hard to do. I do want the community. Thank you for mentioning the community element and how great it feels to not feel like you're alone and feel like you have people to, to go back and forth on in this work, right? So focus not just on what you need from them, but what you can give to them and what's in it for them as well. We did a really big push for poll workers recently. And instead of saying like, go be a poll worker, which is not going to motivate anybody to do it, what we said was like, aren't you nosy? Don't you love being nosy and like seeing the behind the scenes of how things work and like how are your neighbors registered and like all this stuff? You want to be expert level nosy? You want to really know how the sausage is made? Go be a poll worker. And people were like, yeah, I want to do that, right? So it's just finding a different angle to make this more fun and enticing, because at the end of the day, they're going to leave and go, I feel so good because I went to this creator conference, because I served, my community by being a poll worker for the day. But that feeling isn't going to get them there. They're going to leave with it, but it's got to be something else that gets them there. And it's just about spending the time to figure out like, who is the person that I'm trying to convince to do this and what is going to make them want to do it.
So smart. And I love what you're saying about finding community. I mean, we know that we're in a loneliness crisis, right? I don't know someone out there who isn't seeking greater community. And there is so much value in offering that. And not only does it feed all of us as individuals to create that connection, turns out that's also the way we save democracy, right? So, Sara, it's such a delight to have you on. We love getting to see you in our feeds every day. Keep crushing it so you keep showing up. You tell that algorithm who's boss. Don't need to tell you. You're already doing it. And thank you for being obsessed with data and conversion and doing it in a way that's grounded in your values, because we need that. We need you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the work that you do. That's so important. And just thank you for facilitating this conversation. I hope that there's so many folks that are listening who feel a little bit less alone and a little bit more like, hey, maybe there is something that I can do here and it doesn't have to take over my life and I can make friends doing it too.
You heard it here first and always. Thank you, Sara Wiles.
Make a change, make a change, make a change, make a change. Oh yes, we came to make a change. RWB, we came to make a change.
Hi, I'm Moji Alawodeyal from the Feminist Buzzkills Live Pod, the only podcast that helps you navigate the news in this post-pro anti-abortion hellscape. Each week, with co-host Liz Winstead, we dissect all the news from that sketchy intersection of abortion and misogyny with providers and activists working on the ground. The cherry on top is we have amazing comedy guests who help us laugh through the rage. Feminist Buzzkills Live drops Fridays wherever you pod. Listen and subscribe, because when BS is poppin', we pop off.
Do you love badass women of history? Then you need to meet Klondike Kate, the Queen of the Yukon, and her unexpected connection to Tacoma's Pantages Theater. Join Shay and Jody of Rainy Day Rabbit Holes for a special live podcast event, Wednesday, September 16th at 7 p.m. at the beautiful McMenamins Elks Temple in Tacoma, Washington. It's a night of storytelling, local history, and a few truly questionable life choices that somehow all lead right back to Tacoma. We'll also be doing a meet and greet from 6 to 6:30 p.m., so come say hi before the show. Get your tickets at rainydayrabbitholes.com and come find out why all roads lead to Tacoma.